Hey guys, welcome back to my shop. So this week, I have an interesting project for you guys. I am gonna convert this old organ into a desk. So this organ was given to me in bits and pieces. All the guts in here that make it sound like a squealing bag of cats is gone, and I am happy that part is not here. It actually makes it quite a bit lighter, and it makes it easier for me to work with. So the plan is, we're gonna make this into a desk. So I have to build a top on here. We're gonna make this front into a drawer, so you can be able to slide it out and get underneath the cavity that's here. And then we have bits and pieces that came from the front here, and we're gonna add them to the back. And we're gonna add some LED lighting in here so that it's not so dark. So let's go cut up some plywood and make this thing into a desk. I'm starting off by building the top portion of this desk that is going to house a drawer. I'm building this all from 3/4 inch Baltic birch plywood. I rough cut my pieces with a circular saw, and I will cut them to final dimensions on the table saw. I use my crosscut sled to cut all the pieces down to their final length. I have a video on how to build this sled if you want to make one yourself. The link will be in the description. For all the joinery, I decided to use pocket holes since all of them will never be seen. I glued and brad nailed it together, then I went back and added the pocket hole screws. I like to build this way so that the pieces don't shift while putting in the screws. This portion of the build is fairly simple. It just consists of 2 boxes mounted to the underside of the top, flush with the ends. Next, I drilled a hole in one corner for the cable management system that I have come up with. You will see more about this further on in the video. To cover up the wood and make for a durable surface, I glued on some Formica. Formica is a laminate sheet that you glue with contact cement. It is the same stuff used on laminate countertops in kitchens. I'm pretty sure Formica is just a brand name. I have never done Formica before, so this was all new to me. So I went to YouTube University and learned how to do it. It's pretty simple. You just apply contact cement to the laminate and to the wood, let it dry, then stick them together. And after you have it stuck, you go back and you flush trim it with a router. I then flush trim the edges and used a file to knock down the sharp edge. Now that the top was made, I moved on to making the drawer. I made the drawer from 1/2 inch Baltic birch plywood and aluminum panel for the bottom. For the joinery, I cut rabbets in the side pieces. This will allow for more glue surface. I then cut dados for the drawer bottom, and for the back of the drawer, I raised the blade and cut the bottom right off, and you'll see why I did this in a moment. Before assembly, I sanded the inside of all the pieces. It's easier to do this now than later. I also pre-drilled all the mounting holes for the drawer front. I just glued and brad nailed it together. Now you can see why I cut the back off. It is so that I can slide the bottom in and screw it in place. I like doing it this way because it makes it easier to replace the bottom if it ever needs to be. Next, I attached the drawer slides and I used a combination square to make sure the slides come flush with the end of the drawer. And I test fit it to make sure it works. And for the drawer front, I am just going to use the front decorative panel. And boy oh boy was this panel not straight. However, the top rail was straight and it had a lip on it which kind of made it complicated to attach the drawer. So I cut some shims out of plywood and I glued them where the screws would go. And as you can see, this method worked out quite well. Next, I moved on to making the cable management system. I'm using black ABS pipe for this. I cut a series of cuts about 1 inch down, then with a heat gun, I bent them out, which gave me a bunch of mounting tabs. And I have to apologize, I forgot to hit record on the camera when I was doing the heat gun part. I used a 2-inch hole saw to help with aligning the pipe, and I fastened it with a bunch of screws. I had to cut a hole in the bottom of the organ for the pipe to go through. Then very carefully, I set the top in place. I attached 2 45-degree elbows so that it wouldn't be such a sharp bend for the cables. I took some measurements so that I could cut a hole in the back panel. I cut the hole slightly oversized so that I had a little bit of wiggle room. Before attaching the back, I went ahead and extended the pipe and fastened the top down. I then attached the back and I was super pleased that I cut the hole in the right spot. I checked and rechecked my measurements to make sure that I wouldn't screw this up. With that done, I moved on to making the panel for the inside to cover up the back. I used pieces from the front lid and the keyboard lid, and I also included the sheet music ledge and the stops. I attached this all together using a combination of dominoes, screws, and some ingenuity. Now I found the easiest way to install this was to drop the back down and put it in from behind and just screw it in place. Now this part was probably the trickiest part of this whole project. I had to create some side panels to hide about a 2-inch cavity. I used some cardboard to make a template for each side. I traced out each template on 1/2-inch plywood and I cut it out using my jigsaw. I made sure to stay off my line about 1/8 of an inch. I needed this plywood to be about 3/8 thick, so I used my drum sander to thin it out. And then sand it up to my pencil line on the belt sander. To cover up the plywood edge, I applied some edge banding. I first applied the edge banding to the flat, easy spots, then I moved on to the curves. This was a very annoying bend to do. I had to use the tip of the iron in order to get the glue melted. If you have any tips on how to do this easier, please leave them in the comments below. I would really like to find a better way to do this. I used my Olfa knife to trim the banding fairly close to the plywood, then I used my orbital sander to flush it up. And to take away the sharp edge, I routed an 1/8 inch roundover. Next I applied some stain that matched the existing wood, and when it dried, I applied several coats of Wipe On polyurethane. I also took this opportunity to apply some Wipe On polyurethane to the drawer as well. When everything was dry, I started to assemble it all. Before I installed the left side panel, I wanted to install some LED strip lighting. I drilled a 3/4 inch hole for the switch. Then I could attach the wiring to the switch and screw the panel in place. I ran the wiring out the back so that I could attach the power supply. I bought the strip lighting, switch, and power supply all from Lee Valley, and it had come with some very detailed instructions on how to wire this all up. All I had left to do was add some trim pieces along the top to hide some gaps. And with that done, it is all finished. I am very happy with how this turned out. And that is it for this video, and if you watched this video to the very end, I'd like to thank you for that. And if you're new to my channel, I encourage you to hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you never miss when I upload a new video, and like always, we'll see you in the next one.